All right, good morning to you all friends and colleagues, uh, those who are online at this time, and especially those who are going to join me in this short live video, broadcast. I trust everyone is doing good. And today we're going to continue our studies on Revelation chapter number 6, starting at verse 9 through to 11. And this, the content of this verse, relates to the opening of the fifth seal. So it means that there were two more seals to be opened, at which time God's wrath, the parousia, resurrection, and everything is going to take place at the opening of the last seal, that is the seventh seal. So until they get there, things will continue to remain as they were. Anyway, so today we are going to look at the little while. Those were the martyrs who have been persecuted, who have been killed for the testimony, for the testimony which they held, for the testimony which they held. And whilst in the while they were under the altar of gold, they cried out with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwells on earth?" So they have been killed for the testimony of Christ. Now, earlier in the chapter, they were told to continue in the tribulation that was going to come upon them. Even John himself said that he is a participant of this tribulation in Revelation chapter number 1, verse 9. Just as Peter also said that he is also a companion in this tribulation in First Peter chapter 5, verse 1. So all of them were in this tribulation. Paul said that with many tribulation we must enter into the kingdom of God. So all the apostles were in this tribulation. And in the chapter 2 and the verses 10 of this book, John had admonished the churches that they should continue in this tribulation, even to the point of death, and God is going to reward them. So these were those who cried below the altar of God. They were the ones who have held the testimony of God to the point of death. They did not waver, they did not renounce the faith, but they continue in the faith to the point of death. So now they are, asking God, when is He going to avenge for their blood? But what did the Lord tell them? What was the Lord's answer to them after they had, appealed to Him to avenge for their blood? Now, verse 11, the Lord is going to answer them. So, verse 11, it says that then a white robe was given to each of them. So, those who were in that paradise, those who were below the altar of God, that is paradise, they were given a white robe. Now, we will talk about this, the meaning of this garment. Okay. But it's righteousness of the saint. It's indicative of the righteousness of the saint. Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servant and their brethren who will be killed as they were was completed. See, this is very, very important. Now, remember, the Lord told the Israelites, those who were persecuted, unbelieving Jews, the apostate Israel, those that they should have to fill up the measure of the guilt of their fathers in Matthew 23, verse 31 following, and also in First Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 15, that they will have to complete the measure of their father's guilt. But all of them were quoted from Daniel chapter 9, verse 24, when it says that they were to make ends of sin. So when they have completed the measure of their father's guilt, will be the time when they will finish killing the saints for the testimony they held. Okay, so it was for a period of time. So when these things are all done, would then be the return of the Lord to punish those who have, put these people to death for the testimony which they held. So today we are going to look at a little while, because the Lord told them, in answering their question, the Lord said that initially it says that a white robe was given to each of them. Now, if you want to understand what this white robe means, it means uh, uh, righteousness of the saints, and it was also the wedding garment. Okay, they were preparing. The Lord was preparing, preparing them towards the messianic wedding. Okay, towards the messianic wedding. So he was trying to prepare them, towards the. So it was given to them, but they were told they should rest a little while longer. So the time when the Lord will come to uh to judge and avenge the blood of the martyrs was going to come a little while longer, because they will have to rest a little while longer, because the sixth seal has not opened, and the seventh seal has not been opened as well. So what does it mean to say a little while longer? So it means that the Lord was going to come a little while longer. So what is a little while? Now remember, the saints have been killed for the testimony which they held. They did not, renounce the faith, but they continue in it to the point of death. Just as Paul declared in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7 and 8, that he has completed the race, the tribulation and everything he is done with. He's now waiting for that day when the Lord comes to reward him. But when is the Lord going to come? A little while longer in the first century. Okay, now this tribulation, which the church in the first century, were confronted with, was the tribulation foretold by the prophet. So if you want to understand the New Testament tribulation, go to the prophet, and the prophet are going to give you the time frame within which that tribulation was going to last. Okay, and that is in connection with the time of the return of the Lord as well. So I am not going to go there to read, but go to Daniel chapter number 12, verse 1 and 2. There we have the time of the great tribulation, the time of the opening of the books, what we call the Feast of Trumpet, and the time of redemption. Okay, that and the time of redemption, but he uses the word kairos, that is appointed time. So there was appointed time for tribulation, appointed time for redemption, and appointed time for judgment. All is there. But when is all these things going to take place? In Daniel chapter number 12, verse 7, it says that when the power of the holy people are completely shattered, that is when the great tribulation, the opening of the books, or the time of judgment and the time of redemption, will come about. It will come when the power of the holy people is completely shattered. That will also be the time when those who sleep in the dust of the earth are going to be awakened. It occurs, Daniel chapter 9, Daniel chapter 12, verse 7. It is all there. Again, what we also call the Jacob trouble in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 6 and verse 7. We call also that the Jacob's trouble. It is the same tribulation that was going to befall Israel in the last days, befell the church in the last days, and of course the apostles in the last days. Now remember, Jesus, even foretold what was going to happen to them, in terms of uh, proclaiming the gospel, fulfilling the Great Commission, thing that they are going to be delivered, they are going to be punished, they are going to be doing just blah 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 blah. In fact, they are going to suffer tribulation. You understand? So Christ foretold them, and he said that that tribulation that is going to come upon them has no rival. It has never happened before, neither would it ever occur. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 21. Okay, of course, Jesus Christ quoted the apostle, the prophet. Okay, he said that that tribulation which the church, the saints, the church in the first century were going to experience has no rival. And of course, the apostles, after the Lord has ascended high, did say that they were in that tribulation foretold by the prophet and Christ himself. So in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 1, Peter said he was in this tribulation. Revelation chapter 1 verse 9, John said that he was in this tribulation. Second Corinthians chapter 4, verse 9 following, Paul also recounted, that tribulation. And again, Paul told the churches in the first century that they were destined to suffer this tribulation. In First Thessalonians chapter 3 verse 1, down to verse 4. But he who endured to the end will be saved. That is what the Lord said. Okay, but those who are going to hold back, they will not be rewarded when the Lord comes to judge everyone according to his work. So those who continue in the faith to the end, they save themselves from that judgment upon those who were killing them. So at the opening of the fifth seal, those who were below the altar of God, that is paradise, they had also inquired from the Lord, "Oh Lord, when are you going to come to avenge for our blood?" Because you know why? The Lord gave them, or the Lord promised them that, see, I tell you that you will not have gone through the cities of old covenant Israel, before I come. So at least to some extent, those who remain faithful in the midst of this tribulation, they knew that the Lord was going to come to rescue them. When you read Matthew chapter number 10, that is Matthew chapter number 10, that is there in the course of the fulfilling the Great Commission. In the 10th chapter of the book of Matthew, you may start at verse 16, but for the sake of this discussion, we cannot go there. But he said, okay, no, behold, I send you out to as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to the councils and scourge you in their synagogues. And we saw this, happening in the first century. Okay, in Acts chapter number 5, we saw the apostles and stuff like that being subjected to this punishment. Okay, but when you read down to verse 22, this is what Jesus said: "And you will be hated by all for my name's sake." Now, what did the martyrs here? The martyrs, what were they saying? In connection to this, what were they saying? It says that, and they cried out with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwells on it?" So see, these are the people who have been killed for the testimony which they held. Now, this is what Jesus said, that for my name's sake, you'll be hated by all, but he who endures to the end will be saved. Now, when will the end come? The end will come after the gospel has been promulgated throughout the world at the time. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 14, it says that the word will have to go throughout the world before the end comes. And of course, Paul, who was living in the eschaton, or who was living in the end, per 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11, says that indeed the gospel has been preached to the inhabitable earth, to the world at the time, to every creature. Okay, so it means that the end occurred in the first century. Okay, the end occurred in the first century. So, in Colossians chapter 1, verse 5 and 6. So, in the first century, the gospel was preached to the world in the first century. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 5 and 6, and Colossians chapter 1, verse 23, Romans chapter 1, verse 5 and also verse 8. Okay, and Romans chapter 10, verse 18, and video, my friend, and Romans chapter number 16, verse 24 to 26, all indicated that indeed the gospel was preached to the world, at the time. So now it says that. So all indicate that this was the situation in the first century. But it says that when they persecute you, the apostles, in this city, flee to another. For assuredly I say to you, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Okay, so at least the Lord assured them that in the midst of this tribulation, the midst of this persecution, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before I come. Now, when you talk about Israel, we are not talking about the current Israel, those who are at war with the Gazans. This one was founded in 1948. They are the European Israelites. They are not the original Semites. So when we talk about Israel, we are not talking about those who are there, at this time. They are not the one. They have nothing to do with the Bible. But we are talking about, bloodline of Abraham. Those who were there in the days of Christ. So Christ gave them this assurance that, look, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before I come. Okay, so at least they have this hope of the Lord coming to rescue them by destroying those who troubles them. Okay, that is why he said that vengeance is mine. So these people, at the opening of the fifth seal, they were like, no, Lord, when are you going to come? At least you told us that we will not have gone through the cities of Israel before you come. So, you have kept long. When are you going to come to avenge for our blood? Okay, because we have continued in the faith, we have not apostatized in the midst of all this tribulation. We have not apostatized, we have not renounced the faith. We have continued in it to the point of death. We have died for the cause of the gospel. So when are you going to come to, punish those who have our blood in their hand? And the Lord told them that wait a little while longer until your fellow brethren who ought to be killed like you were have been completed. So what is the little while? What is the little while time frame? Is it 2,000 years time frame, or is it something, or is it a time within shortest possible time? Now when you go to John chapter number 16, when you go to John chapter number 16, there's something there that we have to look at. By the way, apostasy was one of the eminent sign of the coming of the Lord, because in 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2, Paul gave two conditions for which the Lord will come. One is the apostasy, okay, the apostasy, and two was the revelation of the son of man of sin, son of perdition, whom the Lord was going to destroy with the breath of his mouth. Okay, so these are the two conditions. And of course, apostasy was running its course in the first century. In 1 John chapter 2, verse 18 to 19, John said that these people did not belong to us. They went out from, that is apostasy. They left, they departed the faith. They went out from the church in the first century. And they did so because they did not belong to them. Because they would have continued in the faith regardless of the magnitude of the tribulation that had come upon them, as others did and died, in the process. And again, in Galatians chapter number 1, verse 6 following, Paul said that, I am astonished that you are quickly, departing from the faith. So apostasy was running its course in the first century. And again, the man of sin in 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2. See, I am giving you two conditions which Paul said that will ought to occur before the Lord comes. So apostasy right there in the first century was running its course. And again, the man of sin. But the man of sin, according to Paul, he sits in the now. The temple there in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is actually Greek word now. That is translated as most holy place. So whoever this figure is was already sitting in the most holy place, which was part of the Jerusalem temple at the time Paul wrote this book. So it's not something that is going to come. It's not Roman Catholic Pope. It's not whoever you might think. But it was an individual. It was a figure who was sitting in the most holy place in the Jerusalem temple when Paul wrote this letter in AD 51. Okay, so he's going to sit there until he's eventually, destroyed in that judgment upon Israel. All right, so we are looking at a little while time frame, because when that little while time frame is over, then the Lord will come. And when is this little while time frame will occur? Okay, he is going to come to avenge for their blood after or at the end of the little while time frame. Now, this is what Jesus said when he was with the apostles or disciples in John chapter number 16. Starting at verse 16. So let's see what is there. Talking about this little while, time frame. So Jesus said, a little while. Now listen, they were all being guided by the same Holy Spirit. A little while, and you, the apostles, will not see me. And again, a little while, and you will see me. Why? because I go to the Father. No, that is John chapter 14, right? I'm going to the Father's house. So the entering period between Christ going to the Father or Father's house and returning from the Father's house is what we call a little while. A little while you will not see me, and again a little while you will see me. Why? Because I go to the Father. So the Lord was going to the Father's house and he was going to come back again. That entering period is what we call a little while. So the saints were told to wait a little while longer. Why? Because Christ's work as a high priest in the most holy place has not been completed yet. And so they will have to endure this tribulation until that time. But verse 17, then some of his disciples said among themselves, what is this that he says to us? A little while you will not see me, and again a little while you will see me because I go to the Father. You see, I will wish that today some of us will take our time to understand this or to ask the same question. Christ had told the disciples that a little while they will not see him, and a little while they will see him. Why? Not because he's going to Hades, but because he's going to the Father's house. So it means that that period, that entering period, when the Lord ascended high, and that time when he returns is what we call a little while. So the people, it was perplexing to them. So they were asking among themselves. So in verse 18, they said, therefore, what is this that he says, a little while? So the people were more interested knowing what this little while means. Little while. The saints who were below the altar of God, they were told a little while, to wait a little while. Here, the people inquired from the Lord, what does the little while time frame mean? Little while. We do not know what he is saying. See, they didn't know what Christ was saying. I'm going to the Father's house, and a little while you will not see me. I'm going to the Father. A little while you, the apostles, will see me. So who are those who will see the Lord return from the Father's house? The apostles. I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see me come in my kingdom. Matthew 16, verse 27-28. Now let's listen to Jesus' response. Now Jesus knew that they desired to ask him, and he said to them, are you, that is the apostles, the disciples, are you inquiring among yourselves about what I said? A little while, and you will not see me, and again a little while you will see me. So he knew their mind. He knew they were confounded, for what he said. So he wanted to kind of like explain that statement to them. So verse 20, he said that most assuredly I said to you, the apostles, you will weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. Now you see what is happening. They will weep and lament. Why are they going to weep and lament? Because they are going to be persecuted for sending out the gospel to the ferocious wolves. They will be persecuted. Some of them will be killed. They will lament. They will weep. But the world will rejoice. What world? It was the world of the first century. Those who persecuted the apostles will rejoice. They are going to rejoice. That is why, even to the ambit that those who were in paradise were still crying, asking, inquiring from the Lord, when is he going to come to avenge for our blood? You understand? Because the Lord has told them. But he gave them assurance that a little while they will not see him, but a little while they will see him again, because he goes to the Father. So, most assuredly, I say to you that you will weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. And you will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will be turned into joy. When will their sorrowful be turned to joy? At the end of the little while time period or time frame. Now verse 20. A woman, when she is in labor, has sorrow because her hour has come. But as soon as she has given birth to the child, she no longer remembers the anguish for the joy that a human being has been born into the world. Now, this is what we call messianic birth pang. Now, if you are at least acquainted with this is what we call the great messianic birth pang. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 8, it is there. Now, you see, when a woman is in labor, during a due time, there's incremental pain, and that will indicate that the child is about to come. Okay, and you know how difficult it is our women, the kind of difficulty they endure, in the course of bringing forth a child. But as soon as the child comes out from them, they forget everything because a child has been born into the world. The same thing the apostles were enduring this tribulation from non-believers. Remember Romans chapter 8, verse 18. Paul said that I consider that the present tribulation is incomparable to that which will be revealed in them. In Romans chapter number 8, verse 18, this is what Paul said for I consider that the suffering of this present time, not 2023, not economic crunch or economic whatever. He talks about the present time in his days in the first century when they were being persecuted, when he was being stoned to near death, when they were being stripped, and that was the present suffering. Of course, they were destined to suffer. So I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in them. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly await for the revealing of the sons of man. Now, of the sons of God. Now, what was this creation? Now, that is not Genesis 1, but that is Exodus 19, 5 and 6. The creation in which they lived in at the time. Okay. Then in that creation, sons of God were being formed through baptism. Sons of God, that is sons of resurrection in Christ, were the saints, the saints or the faithfuls in the first century, those who constituted the church in the first century. They were them. So they were being revealed. Okay, they were being revealed at the time. So those who were enjoying the persecution, versus those who were actually causing the persecution. So there were two groups at the time. Okay, so that earnest expectation, because the creation itself will be delivered out from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. Now we know this was the case. The time of the redemption. You can read 1 Corinthians chapter 15, and also 1 Corinthians. Yeah, it is there. When the Lord comes to deliver, that creation. By the way, that is redemption of Israel, if you please. Now I wouldn't want to go there, but Paul said that the suffering of this present age is incomparable to what will be revealed in them, because that creation itself was subjected to futility and so on and so forth. Now, so this is what I mean. In John chapter number 16, talking about this little while, Jesus used a woman in labor to explain to them what was going to happen, but they should continue in the end. You see, the woman cannot give up just because of the incremental pain. Because if she gives up, perhaps she himself might die. So she has to continue till the child is born into the world. The same thing, the Lord was going to deliver them from that persecution, because the Lord has given them, He gave them the promise that, look, when they persecute you in one city of Israel, run to another city. I tell you that you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before I come. So at least to them, they knew that the Lord was going to come to redeem them from, or deliver them from, that persecution from the world. Okay, so that He used. Now it says that, therefore now you have sorrow. So who were those who sorrow? It was the disciples in the first century. Therefore you now sorrow, but I see you again, but I will see you again. See, in His absence, they are going to sorrow. They are going to be persecuted. They are going to, lament. But He said, no, look, you will see me again. You will see me again. Okay? You see me again. Who are those who will see the Lord again after He has ascended? It was the disciples. So it means that some of them will be alive to see Him again, return. But I see you, but you see me again, your heart will rejoice, and your joy no one will take it away from them. Now remember what happened at the time of the wedding, the time of the messianic wedding. in Revelation chapter 19, after the mystery Babylon has been destroyed. Who was this mystery Babylon? He was the one who was killing the saints. Matthew chapter 23, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who killed the saints. So at the time of the destruction of the apostate Israel, come the wedding and come the joy all over them, because they have completed the journey. The Lord has come and He now dwells with them. He has consummated His marriage with them. Okay, so the little while, what the Lord told the saints who were grieving, even in paradise. You see, these guys were in paradise. Okay, these guys were in paradise, but they still they cried out. They cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy, until you avenge our blood?" Now, yesterday I made a video to explain what this judgment and vengeance mean. Okay, if you want to understand it, just go to the prophet first. Go to Deuteronomy 32, start at verse 34 to 41. That is where the vengeance, is there, and also Isaiah 61. Okay, verse 1. One of the many works of Christ which He has to accomplish was to that will be the time of vengeance. Okay, so these people they wanted to know when. When are you going to come? A little while. You will not see me, but a little while you will see me, because I go to the Father. But because this was open, or this statement occurred at the opening of the fifth seal, they will have to wait a little while longer. And we have just defined a little while longer to mean that entering period between Christ, absentia, when He ascended high, to the time when He returns to the apostles. He is now coming to redeem them. You see, the purpose of the return is to redeem them from that persecution. Daniel chapter 12 said, the time of redemption, when I come to deliver you from these persecutorial entities in the first century. That will be the time when He destroys them. Okay, when someone is chasing you, the person has not been stopped. He will continue to chase you. So He's coming with His brightness to destroy them. First, with the authorities, the powers, the authorities in that darkness of the world, in that first century world. That is the people He comes to destroy. Anyway, so it was for a period. It wasn't going to be 2,000 years. It wasn't going to be 3,000 years or so, but it was going to occur in the first century. At least some of them will be alive, to see Him come and to destroy those who destroy them, because He says that vengeance is mine. It is up to me. It is my prerogative to repay. Anyway, so the time of repayment occurred when Israel was destroyed. I will have to end here. God willing, come your way some other time. I am Solomon. On YouTube, it is All Hope Fulfilled. All Hope Fulfilled. When you go there on YouTube, All Hope Fulfilled, I have a pack of videos there, that you can watch. So until we meet again, bye.